Hey there everybody, Eric from Outer Limitless coming at you today with another video. Now today's video for me is going to be a little bit of a project. I'm actually looking forward to this. I have an ESEE Izula. This is the version 1, so the original ESEE Izula knife here. Now I need a handle for this. And I thought at first, well, you know, I've always been kind of interested in those knife connection handle scales. To me, they look like an excellent addition to, you know, a way to customize your knife. And I had looked at them in terms of maybe for an ESEE 6 or even my Hungalis and thought, well, you know, maybe I'll get a Rat 7 and get it customized. And then I got my hands on this Izula and I said, you know what? I think putting those handle scales on this blade might be pretty cool. But then at the same time, I'm like, well, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of pricey for a knife of this size to put handle scales on here. And I really, you know, I didn't see the need. I don't really know how much I'm going to go to this blade. I mean, I do like it. I've used it a little bit now. Now, I have not reviewed this, but I thought maybe this is what I would do with this knife for a video. You know, one of the things that I've actually enjoyed is good paracord work. I mean, I like working with paracord. It's pretty fun. You know, I've made myself basically some bracelets. Here, I've actually had some pretty good luck making overstrike guards on my axes. So here you'll see one on my Gransforsbruck small forest axe. And then here on my Gransforsbruck Scandinavian forest axe. Now these are a little bit interesting where they have a little weave pattern to them, and I thought that might work out pretty good on this Izula. So I have seen a lot of people do paracord handle wraps on these, but not quite the way I'm going to approach it today. I'm trying to do something a little bit different, really customize this knife and make it something that's just a little bit of interest. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in seeing how I'm going to approach it, do me a favor. Stay tuned. So one of the things that I did with this small forest axe is after I did my weave, basically I soaked this in boiled linseed oil and it made it nice and firm. Now it's not hard on my hands, but it definitely made it firm and almost just very solid, which I like. And the other thing is this was white paracord. And after basically, you know, lathering it in that boiled linseed oil, it has become a very nice bone kind of color. So what I thought I would do is kind of two-tone this blade, and the bulk of what I'm going to do to start it is wrap it in white paracord with the idea that afterwards, if I dip this or soak it in that boiled linseed oil, it will turn that bone color. Now there's a number of different patterns that you can use. I want something that's going to be reasonably thick. I want to have something that kind of fills out my hand, and I've looked at a number of different patterns and found one that I think is going to work overall pretty well. So here I have my white paracord and my Izula, and what I'm going to do is for my first step, I'm going to use the 360-degree Strider wrap. Now, I've never tried this before. I've never wrapped a handle in paracord, and I've never tried the Strider wrap, but what the heck. So, you know, I've kind of made up my own things here with these weaves, and at this point, I think I'm just going to do what I know best, and that's just get at it. So, let's give it a try. So, the main thing for me is basically trying to work with this in the sheath because I want my wrap to essentially end before the sheath. I don't want the wrap to accidentally extend to be in conflict with the sheath, because then I'll have sort of like a retention problem, and the last thing I want to do is start messing with that. So basically this is my starting point, and that'll work out pretty well where I should be able to work on this the whole time with the knife in the sheath and not, you know, potentially risk accidentally cutting myself. So one thing I know is that I have way more paracord than I need. But I don't think I'm going to cut it because you'll see that I want to leave myself sort of able to add a second layer to this. Now, I'm not sure if I'm going to add specifically a second layer or some other way of weaving, but I want to leave enough length on here to just allow me to do that if I so choose. So first things first is I pretty much have to establish myself on the blade, and I know I'm going to be doing this, like I said, as close as I can to the handle. And I think in order to do this wrap, the key is that I'm kind of trying to create almost like a hitch. And if I can hold this for you to see it, I'm basically going to be creating hitches like this that loop back on themselves. So creating an initial hitch, and then I think I actually need to go up. So you'll see I have that facing down right now. So I got to kind of reverse my direction there, but then centering these knots, kind of on the center of the spine here. So let me get this thing a little more established, and then I'll get into the details and we'll see how this looks. So as I'm doing this, I'm realizing that if I'm not careful and twisting it the same way every time, my pattern will be off. So I think I'm going to start over, as annoying as this is, but I think I can get a better product. So what I'm saying is I need to pay more attention to which way I'm crossing it each time and making sure I'm doing the appropriate cross in consistently. So, I'll call it right over left versus left over right. And if I don't pay attention to that, the pattern gets kind of messed up as I go. So a little bit of a learning curve here, but let me start over, and hopefully I'll get a little bit of a better result. And then the other thing is I'm sitting here trying to balance this. So I'm going to get myself something to kind of hold this in place while I work. I think those are the two things that I need to do better. Okay, so now I seem to be in, hopefully, much better shape. So I have this nice and secure. I'm going to start my wrap. Actually, I got to make sure I'm in the center of my paracord now, which is right there. Now again, right hand over left, and then under, center that, and wrap around. So if that's the case, I'm going to do the same on this side, which is right hand over left and around. And hopefully that will keep this nice and even the entire way and give me a quality pattern. Now you see here as I go, just kind of snugging this up a little bit and trying to make sure that I'm getting the maximum wrap on the handle. Again, just kind of going, I'm calling it medium tight. So try not to go like overboard on the tightness, but keep it tight enough that it just does what I need it to. So I'm getting there. So now I'm getting towards the end, and I guess I need to think about my kind of exit strategy. And I would love to get this whole handle kind of wrapped. So I don't know. I think I'm like on my last kind of cross here. But I think if I'm careful, let's see, I might be able to do one more, but that's probably it. Let's see. And at this point, I don't know. That's probably it. So, I got to think about this for a second and kind of figure out exactly what I'm going to do now. So, hang tight. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to loop some of this excess around and try to finish off this last kind of loop here. Let's see. So that's going to go around like that. And this is going to go around like this. Just once to see how that looks. So if those get split over just for a second here, I think I'm going to do a couple more loops and try to finish off this sort of, call it the pommel end of this thing. So loop that one. Loop this. This is one of those things that, I don't know, you just kind of figure it out as you go. Or you have a good idea. I just really personally don't. Like I said, I mean, this is my first time really kind of doing this type of wrap. So I'm really just sort of winging it at this point, and hoping for the best. But I have, like I said, just a general idea of what I'm trying to accomplish. Getting that one through there, and I'm getting close. So that's actually starting to look overall really pretty good. So at this point, I'm pretty happy with how this is going. I have a good amount of excess, and that's exactly what I wanted. So I have a paracord needle, and what I'm talking about doing now is actually creating an additional weave on this to kind of thicken out the handle, but also add a little bit of style. So one of these is going to come over the top and then weave back down and through the handle on this side, and the other one of these is going to stay on this side and weave down through the handle and then up and back on this side. So anyway, that's going to be a little more detailed work, but I think I know exactly what I need to do. I'm pretty much just going to go over, under, all the way down one side, over, under, all the way back. And at that point, I'll evaluate it and see if I can go a second or maybe even a third time. So let's just take a quick look at this real fast, and you can see what I've done there. Overall, it came out pretty good. I just kind of evened it out a little bit with my paracord needle and kind of gave it the space it needs, and you'll see I'm going to be able to weave over, under, utilizing the spaces that are in there. So overall, that side looks pretty good. You can see that I have basically had the ends of the paracord here just kind of sticking through that final loop. Now I'm going to bring one of them again back over the other side to establish the weave that way, and then this one will start working its way down like that. So overall, so far, this is looking pretty good. So it's a long, tedious process for me to weave this next sort of step here. So basically I need two things. One thing is a good quality paracord needle. Now I've used this particular one for a long time now, and it does work well. The other thing is a good, strong vodka drink. So at this point, I'm pretty well set up to get into this weave. I'm going to take this out of the vise here and just kind of sit here and watch a little TV and do my work. So this pretty much starts with me installing the needle onto the paracord. Now you can see that this is going to be a little too fat to go on there, so pretty much what you need to do is melt down one of these ends, and then that'll allow this to kind of thread its way on. So I'm going to grab my lighter, melt that down, and then thread this needle onto the paracord. Getting it good and hot. Gonna kind of thin that out a bit and see if that'll fit, and if not, gotta go just a little bit further. That might go, but it's kind of tight, so I'm just gonna melt it down just a touch more. That looks like it should do it. Yep. So, threading that on. The inside of these needles, they are threaded, so it will kind of spin its way on there, and it holds pretty good. So once you get into this sort of weaving, that is really an excellent tool to have I've had mine for a few years now. I have 2 of them, but you really pretty much only need 1. Well, it depends. It depends on what you're doing. For this particular project here today, I only need 1. So this is going to be the side that I take, and I'm going to pull it over the top here. So first I'm going to go under and through and establish this first loop. Make sure that it stays exactly where it needs to, because once this is done, the top of this will be kind of permanent. So I'm just getting that into place, pulling this one tight, and getting that right where it needs to be. And there, this will establish my weave going down this side. So the top's looking good, nice and round, and I'll just work my way and weave right down through here until I get to the bottom and figure out where I'm at. Alright, so now I'm pretty far along here. You can see that I have pretty well filled out this handle, and when you look real close at the details, pretty much I've done a down and back on the inside of the handle, basically towards the middle, and then another down and back on the outside. Now that wrap was so tight, and as I had mentioned early on, that sometimes when you weave the additional paracord, it's nice when it's a little bit loose. I went too tight, and even though I said I was going to go kind of like a medium tight there, it was too tight to get my needles exactly where I needed them. So you'll see that I kind of cheated and alternated sort of every other section of the weave. Now, this is overall a decent thickness. So when you look at how thick that spine is at this point, it is reasonably comfortable, and I was very successful in not impeding the sheath. So that is working out overall pretty nice. I have the paracord basically sticking out both on the same side right now. Now I have a number of different things that I could do, but I haven't committed to anything. But grip-wise, that feels great. And then the ability for the sheath to click into place, no problem. So I'm meeting a number of my sort of agenda points right now. I have kind of done a little bit of damage and scuffed up my finish on this a little bit. I don't care. I mean, if you know me and you've watched enough of my channel, you know that typically I would strip a 1095 blade. Actually, I would strip almost every blade anyway. So at some point in time, this will end up getting stripped, and I'll put a patina on it. And I am going to, as I mentioned, basically lather this handle in the boiled linseed oil, which is cool, but I am still not done. So now it is day 2. I ran out of time yesterday, so I'm just kind of coming back at you today. You'll see I finished off the ends here simply by snipping the ends and then melting them down. So overall, pretty good finish to the paracord, no different than what you'd typically do on most other paracord wraps. So here I have my boiled linseed oil, and I'm just gonna pop this thing open. And like I mentioned, basically I'm just gonna lather this thing in this boiled linseed oil, and that's gonna sort of turn the color of the paracord, but also really make it sort of firm and not overly rough on your hands, but I mean it really does firm it up quite a bit and makes it sort of like a permanent tight weave and doesn't allow it to fall apart. And at some point I'm going to decide I want to pull this paracord off and maybe then strip the blade, but for now I'm just basically going to lather this thing, and a little more than I needed there, but I really wanted to like saturate into the handle here and coat it quite nicely. Now at the same time, now that I've poured all this linseed oil on the ground, I'm going to go grab my small forest axe and Scandinavian forest axe and use this oil here to kind of lather up my handle and treat it. So basically just working this stuff into the paracord here, and I'll let that dry overnight. And before I put this away, I'm just going to clean up the blade because I don't want this to actually dry on the blade itself. So just cleaning up that blade real nice and making sure that it's not on the gray part, and then this handle will dry overnight and kind of turn into that sort of bone color, which I like. So again, just trying to be kind of careful of the actual gray powder coated blade here. But I'm going to let this thing dry, and that is going to look overall pretty darn cool. So again, nice and well saturated. Now I'm just going to grab my Grants vs. Brooks products here, my axes and hatchets, and oil up those handles while I got some excess on this rag. Alright, so here you have it. This is the finished product, which I think actually came out pretty cool. So I gave this a day to dry, and just kind of, you know, at the touch here, it's just a little bit oily, not too bad, but that will continue to kind of take care of itself over time. You know, between me handling it and then, I mean, a little sort of cloth and sort of dabbing this off would kind of do it too. But I am overall quite happy with this result. I think it's interesting. It's just a unique little wrap, something a little different from what everybody else has done. Actually, it feels great in the hand. Just fills out my hand nicely there. So it is overall quite comfortable. And then one of my key features that I don't have any retention problems here, so clicking that in and it fits perfect. So overall, I would call this a success. So alright guys, thanks for stopping by. I hope you like what you saw. I hope you found it a little bit informative. If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Take care now. I'll see you soon.